This is Gemara Baba Basra Daf Kof Beis. I'm holding on. Kof Beis Amar Aleph, approximately 6 lines from the top. Amar Mar. And today's shiur, as we're a little bit late, this is the shiur for Shabbos's Daf, the third day of Yontif, has been generously sponsored as Lezchot Refuah Shalema for Tinaik ben Miriam Ahuva B'siyata Dishmaya, the continuous Zechusim, and most importantly, Koyach HaTorah should bring Tinaik ben Miriam Ahuva a complete Refuah Shalema B'Karov. We're holding 5 lines down. The first one line is Tifusasai Amar Mar. So we just quoted a piece of the Mishnah, which the Gemara now is going to requote and then dive into. Me'arba vad shemaina, from the Mishnah said, if there are 3 dead bodies found within a space of arba to shemaina, 4 to 8 amos, then it is the din of a Pesach Kvaris. Says the Gemara Mani. Who does the Mishnah follow? The Rabbanan said that the size of a area that you bury a body is 4 amos by 6 amos. And therefore, if you have 3 bodies parallel to each other, it will never be more than 6 amos. Why does the Mishnah say from 4 to 8? Rav Shimon Amar Sheish al Shemaina. Rav Shimon says it's 6 by 8 amos, and therefore it's never going to be less than 6 amos. So why does the Mishnah say 4 to 8? According to the Rabbanan, the maximum is too large. According to Rav Shimon, the minimum is too small. So whose sheet does the Mishnah that says 4 to 8? Answers the Gemara La'ilam Rav Shimoni. Smack in the middle of the Amik of Beis and Aleph, the first word of the line is Shimon. Says the Gemara, it's really Rav Shimon, that how big is a normal area of a Beis HaKvaros? It is 6 to 8 amos. So why did the Mishnah say 4 to 8 amos? Explains the Gemara, Vaitanu Hu de Tanya. It's the following Tanya that we learned in a Braisa. Matzah Ritzufim. Says the Raisa, if you found a bunch of corpses, a bunch of dead bodies lying close together, ve'ein beinehem, and there is not between any 3 of them the normal spacing, midalid varches yesh lehen tfusa. There's not the normal spacing. If it is 4 to 8 amos apart, then they're considered whatever the earth underneath them is. Ve'ein lahen shchunas kvaros. But they're not considered a graveyard, meaning you're allowed to move them, rebury them, as long as you take the earth underneath it. Rav Shimon ben Yehuda Omer, that's the opinion of the Tanna Kama. Shimon Yehuda Omer Mishum Rabbi Shimon. This is the Rav Shimon that we're looking for. Royin es I'm saying kilo einot. Says Rav Shimon Yehuda, the name of Rav Shimon, we view the middle ones if they do not exist. Vashar mitzarfim, and the remaining corpses combined midal amos varches amos, from 4 to 8 amos. So according to this Tana, Rav Shimon Yehuda b'shem Rav Shimon, it's mamish the din of the Mishnah that what 4 to 8, that's when it's going to get a din of a Beis HaKvaros. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Mayokim the Rav Shimon. Ema Seifa. Look at the Seifa. What did the Seifa our Mishnah say? The Mishnah continued, and the Mishnah said that we check outwards 20 amos. Says the Gemara Bamani. Whose opinion is that? Rav Shimon according to Rav Shimon, it should be 22 amos. Why? Because it's 8 amos long, and the chutz area is 6 amos. So you have 8 amos, you have 8 amos, you have the 6 amos in the middle. So it's 22 amos. Irabana, and then what? Tamna Srehavon. It's only 8 amos. Why? Because according to the Rabbanan, it's a 6 amma area of the bodies, another 6 amos, and 6 amos in the middle. So says the Gemara, very good that you're miyashev. You figured out how the first part of the Mishnah fits with Rav Shimon. What about the end of the Mishnah? Answers the Gemara 4 lines from the bottom. Lo'ilam Rabbanani. Really, the Mishnah is the Rabbanan Kigain. And why did the Mishnah say that you check 20 amos to badak b'lachsaina? You checked on a diagonal And therefore, if it's 18 amos long, but the diagonal, of course, is going to be longer than 18 amos, and that's how you get 20 amos. Says the Gemara, 1 second with a habilach saina. But if you're checking on a diagonal, hanami v'lach saina, then we should assume that everything is in a diagonal. And if that is true, Esir v'tartin havon, then it should be 22 amos. Says the Gemara, no. Say more precisely. Let me correct myself. It's not that we assume they're buried straight, and you're just checking the diagonal. Let me explain a little better. Says the Gemara that we're talking about when you find the first kever, you search that area on a diagonal, and therefore, instead of if it's 6 by 8, it's going to be 7.2 amos. If we do the math, and that's how the Gemara assumed you're going to get to 20 amos. But the Gemara says, wait, if you're searching that one on diagonal, you should have to search them all on a diagonal. And therefore, ask the Gemara, you should end up having to have 22 amos. Says the Gemara, no, one on diagonal we're going to check, but not two. And with that, we turn over to Kov Beis, Amid Beis, and says the Gemara a second teretz to figure out what's going on over here. Rav Shisha Berei de Ravidi Amar, says Rav Shisha Berei de Ravidi. It's still trying to explain who is the Tana of our Mishnah. Explains Rav Shisha Amar Lo'ilam Rav Shimon. It is Rav Shimon. Rachamay Eskinan. What are we talking about? Benifle. Similar to what we had in the previous daf, that there were smaller kvarais when they're buried as a stillbirth, and therefore we could assume it's smaller than 6 amos, and therefore you're right that in essence it should be 22 amos you have to search. But if there was a stillbirth buried there, it's going to be a smaller kever, and therefore you only have to search 20 amos. Says the Gemara, 1 second, maybe we should assume that the whole area is a burial for stillbirths and time the Sreyavon. Therefore, you should never have to search more than 18 amos. Why 20? Says the Gemara, but we're not going to assume that it's going to be 2 stillbirths. And the Rashbam says a little bit more, is that it was not the norm to bury 2 stillbirths next to each other. We continue 4 lines down. The Gemara really brings us back to the aforementioned brisa between the Rabbanan and Rav Shimon. In Rav Shimon said, we view the middle corpses like they're not there. The Rabbanan disagreed. Says the Gemara, now let's go back. Let's go back to this brisa we quoted on Amud Aleph, and let's ask a stira, both in the sheet of the Rabbanan and in the sheet of Rav Shimon. Says the Gemara of Rami, the Rabbanan, the Ram, the Rav Shimon, the Rav Shimon. The Tanya, we learned in a brisa, or some change it to Tanan, it's a Mishnah in Kalayim. Karen and two alpachas me'arba amos. We have a karem, we have a vineyard that is planted in less than 4 amos. There's not much space between each row. Rav Shimon Omer Einoi Karem, says Rav Shimon, does not get the status of a karem of a vineyard, and we're just going to assume it's a bunch of vines collected in that area because it's planted too close together. And what's the nekuda? The nekuda that's necessary is, and therefore if you plant another species there, you're not over on kalayim. You view the middle ones that they're not there, but it still gets a din of a karem. Therefore, you can't plant anything else in that area. Clearly, the Rabbanan are saying like Rav Shimon Bayas, Rav Shimon are saying like Rabbanan Bayas. So says the Gemara, Kasha, the Rabbanan, Kasha, Rav Shimon, a double stira. Answers the Gemara, the Rav Shimon, like Kasha, why? Hasam layanati inchi adaita liyakar. Because over there, when it comes to the karem, people do not plant in order to remove something. Meaning, you can't say that those middle vines, let's view them as if they're not there, because people don't actually want to uproot them. They planted it there, they want it to stay there, and therefore, Rav Shimon says it doesn't get a din of a karem. Whereas halcha by us, by the graveyards, it could be that they didn't bury it properly, because maybe it was late on a Friday afternoon, and they just put the dead body there, and they planned on removing it later, and therefore that svar is a reason to say that we can view the middle ones that are not there. Similarly, over here by us, says the Rabbanan, since it's minavel, since it's not a proper burial to bury in such a mannerism, loy mikri kever is not considered to be a kever. Whereas Hasav over there, could be that someone did plant it in such mannerism, and they're gonna say, "Yeah, the ones that don't grow so well, let us use those for firewood." Meaning, we're gonna feed them little ones like they're not there, because could be the person just bury them, and he did indeed have in mind that they're not going to endure, and then he'll just uproot them. Hadron aloch amoicher peira is always a chazar in source, especially these are difficult Gemaras. And we begin the next parak, we're going to begin the Mishnah. Continuing the same theme of Mechirais. Someone says, I'm selling you a base core. And in the field, there are these nikayim, there are these clefts, 10 tvachim deep, and oisulaim gavayin yitvachim, or racks 10 tvachim high, einon nidadim ima, that is not considered part of the field, but rather the seller has to give him. He said, I'm giving you a base core. So I'm giving you a base core, not including those areas. Pachs mikan, if it's less than 10 tvachim deep or 10 tvachim high, nidadim ima is included in it. Case A of the Mishnah. Case B, the remember the kid base core offer. If you said like a base core offer, then if you go on the comment, because he said kid, then then it is considered measured along with the field, and it is included in the field. Stop over here. I'll pick it up from the Gemara. B'siyata dishmaya.